All right. Welcome everyone to our podcast show. So today I've been joined by a special guest all the way from Celo. He's the founder of Celo, and I'll just let him introduce himself to the show.
Fantastic. Thank you, Francis, for having me. Really good to be here. So yes, I'm one of the founders of Celo, which is a carbon negative blockchain that's fast and optimized for mobile. And really that, we started working on because we saw a big need for bringing better financial infrastructure, or more broadly, infrastructure for a digital economy to the world. And today I'm the president of the Celo Foundation, which is an organization in the Celo ecosystem that supports the ecosystem, does a lot of public good funding, investments in the ecosystem, in founders, many different founder programs. Many people will have heard of Celo Camp, which is funded by the Celo Foundation, and a whole host of initiatives to, as best as possible, support all the amazing companies that are building on Celo. And maybe just a little bit of personal background.
Mhm.
I came to this, because my fellow co-founders and I were brainstorming. We had previously started a company together, and we were kind of thinking about, okay, for this next chapter, we knew we wanted to work together again, and we were, I think, suddenly having this realization, reading about first Bitcoin and then, almost more importantly, Ethereum, how software, or how money really is now software and can have a lot more features, can really, look very different from what we've gotten used to as a society. And that opened up a whole range of interesting possibilities and use cases that we got really excited to explore. And so, rather than maybe starting with kind of a single idea, in our case, it was actually a collection of ideas that all led us to start working on what now has become Celo.
Fantastic. So, unlike most of the people who got into crypto and blockchain, yours was pretty interesting, because a little bit about me, I got into it through meme coins and shit coins, but I like the way you people got into it. You kind of identified a problem and you just didn't do it alone. The fact that you came up with some of the fellow co-founders and got into it is really amazing. So I'm just wondering if probably you can talk a bit about maybe your background and your co-founder's background, probably in the tech space or anywhere else that you had specialized apart from crypto and
Yeah.
blockchain.
So Seb Merrick and I met at MIT. Seb at the time was a professor, at the Media Lab, running the social computing lab, and had previously started a personalized search engine company that was acquired by Google in the early days, and he had spent several years at Google in the early days building that effort. And when Merrick and I met him at MIT, Merrick at the time was finishing his PhD in computer science, and we were just impressed by kind of how Seb was looking at the world and the experience he had going through that. And we were at the time thinking about starting a company called Loku, or we were starting it. And the idea there was fairly simple, was using machine learning to help small businesses more easily better manage their online presence. And we asked Seb to be an advisor, and he said yes, and later became pretty involved with the company, joined the board, and over the years we ended up becoming good friends and realized we work really well together. So Merrick and Seb are very technical, incredible amount of knowledge, and a lot of it very relevant to the work we're doing now. Seb authored a paper called Eigentrust, which is very influential, probably the most cited paper in peer-to-peer reputation. Merrick had done a lot of research around distributed systems, which is obviously very relevant to blockchains. And so from my perspective, I had come more from the financial kind of market side, economics. I had started my career at Morgan Stanley in fixed income capital markets, and so had done a lot of work in structured products involving interest rates, FX, credit, and yeah, I think if I look at our first, beyond even the three of us, if I look at the first 5-10 people that joined the core team, it's really a very diverse set of backgrounds. People coming out of PhD programs in economics and finance, people coming out of the public sector, like the World Bank. Obviously folks joining from sort of the tech sector. But I think one of the things that, and I think this is true even today, what it takes to build something successful in the space, I think requires really a diverse set of backgrounds and perspectives. And that I think makes working in Web3 a lot more exciting. I want to say one more thing. I think there's often a lot of focus on, what's the initial idea and maybe even what is sort of the team and the backgrounds. But I think for us, having worked together as well, we honed in on an area that we were excited about exploring, and we all were aligned that we would want to spend time, in this field. And likely a lot of time, right? When you start a company, when you start a project like this, you want to know that this is something you're going to be passionate about even 10 years later. And I think one thing that in retrospect was very helpful, what we did was we sat down and we wrote down the values that we felt were important for us as we were thinking about growing the initial team, but also longer term that we would hope to see reflected in the ecosystem forming around this open permissionless protocol. And and then the mission statement. And if I look at those things now, they're unchanged. Maybe there's some slight tweaks to how we kind of talk about it and share it in terms of making it more concrete for people. But at the essence, right, the mission is to really help bring a new financial infrastructure, new financial system that can create the conditions for prosperity for all. And, that from there sort of kind of a whole range of, items that tie back to a lot of the regenerative economics and decentralized finance principles. And then our two core values, which are unique purpose and connectedness, and which again unfold into a richer set of values and ways we envision working together. And I think all that was very important because, as you know, in this space, so much can happen in a day, in a week. And, oftentimes as you're going through these phases of just a lot of change and, a lot may kind of change how you look at what you're building, the ecosystem around it, what other people are doing, right? Maybe even what people want, right? But to this day, the mission, the values have stayed sort of the constant anchor and North Star, and that's been really powerful. And to this day, we really enjoy getting together with each other and working on this. So that's been just maybe some insight also for people that are thinking about starting a project to very early on, as early as you can with your co-founders, sit down and do that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. Just hearing from what you've said, how passionate the co-founders were. I can tell that you really put into thinking a lot. Like you, just you alone, your background is in economy. Then your co-founders are the techs. I can say that you people put a lot into thinking, which is like uh, I could equate it to what maybe people would think of starting a startup should look into. Just tied in onto that, I'd just like to probably hear a little bit of story or what inspired you now to um, begin a mobile first kind of blockchain protocol, and how did you just you and your members just decided to start building on this?
Yeah, I think it became very obvious very quickly. I think we, with sort of the mission being prosperity for all and thinking about how to bring the power of this new technology to as many people in the world, you very quickly realize that this stuff has to work on a mobile phone, right? The internet has brought access to information really to every corner of the world, right? Where someone may even have a kind of slow dial-up connection, right, to the internet, can read the news now. But the same hasn't happened for money, for value, for economic opportunity. And even today, many years into Web3 products being built, most of those products are still optimized or built for someone sitting at a desktop, right, or looking at things on a computer.
Yeah.
And so for us, this was one of the very important kind of design constraints to say, hey, we want this to work on mobile phones. And ideally, we want every application that's building on Celo to have that mindset and think about what the mobile experience looks like. And it doesn't always have to be a native mobile app, right? But it should be an experience that can work well on a small screen. And then, if you think about signing transactions, right, having good mobile wallets that can do that seamlessly and sort of with a kind of user's perspective in mind. So to us, mobile, it's less about, I think, when people think about mobile first or mobile, maybe people assume, you need to kind of launch a phone to do that. It's less about that. I think it's really thinking about every aspect of the stuff that's touching the end user. What is the experience and how can it work, right, for people? And I think there's also a difference when you dive a little deeper and you think about how most people today are experiencing the blockchain, crypto. It's usually through a centralized intermediary. And ideally, we have been obviously discussing as a community the power of truly decentralized, permissionless infrastructure and systems and products, right? Ideally, someone with a non-custodial wallet, self-hosted, should be able, without sort of the need for central intermediary, to access all these new applications and tools and be a part of this digital economy. And in order to do that from a phone, there's the ability to quickly sync with the chain, even just on a phone with limited bandwidth, right? And a bunch of other innovations that, if you look at the technical roadmap for the Celo blockchain, you'll find a lot of things that are geared towards making that possible.
Yeah, tied on to that, I like the fact that Celo enables really almost it's like nothing. The transaction fees are negligible. There's a friend of mine who we usually transact with. If he sends me some CUSD in, we'll talk about the products of Celo. If he sends me in my Valora wallet, it deducts like 0.05 cents, which I think is a really cool thing. And I like the fact about the mobile first perspective, because here in Africa, not many people have the luxury of owning laptops and stuff. So Celo is, I think you guys made it for Africa, because it really enables a really large scale use of Celo around our continent. So tied on to that, I just wanted to hear you talk about some of the following things that are happening in the ecosystem. You've talked about the mobile first experience. Could you slightly touch on the regenerative path towards prosperity, the ReFi part, and tied on to
Absolutely.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
you could probably start with that.
Yeah, and this also I think is important. Maybe to give a little bit more context to. So I said in the beginning that we had this realization early on that money is software, and as soon as we had that realization, we asked ourselves, okay, if we and this is not just the three of us or the early team, but we as a kind of broader Web3 community, if we have a chance to reinvent the financial infrastructure, the economic infrastructure in the world, then how would we think about that? What would be things that we would want to do different? And one of the immediate things that comes to mind, right, when you start thinking about this is, well, wait a second, in the current system, we're growing often at the expense of the environment, right? Or we're basically having a system that has negative externalities, so sort of has a bad impact for things that we care about, whether that's the environment or the way our communities work, or even the individual itself in terms of kind of a financial access question. And so we said to ourselves, one of the designing criteria for this new system, again, should be a way to, well, first of all, ideally minimize those externalities, but maybe even better, maybe we can have a system that is more in sync with the health of the planet or the health of our communities by actually having positive externalities. And that is really interesting. And it could be as easy as thinking about a system where every time you transact, there's a small tax on every transaction that goes towards protecting the environment, or some of those elements are directly built into the system itself, in terms of, for example, the reserves that back currencies. And so, a lot of these concepts, funnily enough, have been around for many, many years, even predating Bitcoin. But until now, there wasn't a technology to implement them. And so we've been studying, a lot of sort of that, kind of economic theory. And, I think we were getting pretty excited because we could see a path to people implementing some of these things using Web3 tools and infrastructure. And, fast forward 5 years, now the Celo mainnet has been live for 3 years. From the get-go, we actually said, hey, if this is our objective, then the chain itself should be carbon negative from the outset. And so we, through kind of community kind of governance, have actually had a portion of the block rewards go towards offsetting the footprint of the operations of the chain. And so Celo was the first chain to be carbon negative. And more recently, on Earth Day, or 3-year anniversary this year of the protocol mainnet, C-Labs made a big announcement introducing this concept of ultra-green money, which is really exciting, and is basically taking that one step further and making it more programmatic, having really programmatic offsets be tied directly into the operation of Celo itself, on top of the sound money concept that has been getting a lot of popularity within the broader Ethereum community. So that's very exciting. But all of that is still, I would say, only a small part of a much bigger movement that's happening. And in many ways, any application today that people are building can be ReFi, can have regenerative finance elements. You could imagine someone building a decentralized exchange and, for example, having a small part of every transaction go towards, preserving natural assets. You could imagine, and someone is building this, right, applications that are incentivizing good behavior, good climate behavior by people. You could imagine people launching community currencies that are preserving the wealth of a community within that community and growing it. And all of these things that seemed like, in some cases, crazy far out ideas are now being implemented. And interestingly, all of the world, this is not innovation that is centered in Silicon Valley, but you take grassroots economics based out of Kilifi, Kenya, right, who is really at the forefront of thinking about mutual credit, community currencies, and how to kind of bootstrap those local economies is really exciting. You think about other circular economy use cases. When I was in Kenya recently, I met with several teams that are working on really interesting solutions tied to waste management and plastics recovery. And to me, this is so powerful, because for a long time, people, I think, didn't see a path for themselves to affect change at a larger scale, right? You're kind of like, oh, well, maybe the government can do something, or maybe this big corporation can do something, only to be disappointed over and over again. But Web3 really is a very powerful tool for coordinating many people, no matter where they are, through technology. And so I think you're seeing the beginnings of a movement that collectively and kind of in aggregate can have a pretty massive impact on climate change and just general societal change topics. Another example would be addressing extreme poverty through more scalable approaches and more transparent approaches to UBI programs, as Impact Market or more recently Good Dollar on Celo have been showing a path. So to me, a lot of these financial primitives have been battle tested over the last few years, and they're growing. They've been rolled out and they're growing. And I think in the next 12, 18 months, it's very likely that we'll onboard 1 billion people to Web3, and not people, buying or, who want to play sort of in a token casino, right? But people that, for the most part, are using products that are running on Web3 rails, often maybe without them noticing or needing to kind of really notice that, right? But it's a technology that powers everyday use cases. And I think we got to do a better job as a community to tell that story, because I think it's also one that resonates with with policymakers, with governments that are right now trying to figure out, what is this? Like, should this be something we should embrace or be careful about? And I think, if I look at sort of all the things that are happening, man, I would love to see more governments embrace this technology, because it could really bring a lot of benefits to their people.
Yeah, I think it will need people like me and you to evangelize to the governments how the positives of blockchain and Web3 technology really outweighs the negatives. So once we do that, I guess they will be obliged to kind of onboard it. And just tied to what you've talked about, I was kind of in a wondering how the ReFi Celo achieves the ReFi, and you just said that there's a small tax that is channeled toward the ReFi activities. So this is just an off question. How do you like account for this? Is my imagination. Let's say for all the transactions, maybe I'll just use an arbitrary number. Maybe $1,000 have been taxed for ReFi activities. So how do you account for the $1,000 and ensure it's properly used for ReFi activity?
Yeah, two things. So one, as with respect to all the activities tied to the chain itself, I highly recommend bookmarking ultragreen.money, which is a dashboard and a page that's going to evolve over time as it collects sort of all the information around the kind of how Celo is becoming ultragreen money, as we talked about. The other, and this is more the broader ecosystem side, we don't have a great way yet to track everything that's happening. I know Climate Collective, which is a nonprofit in the Celo ecosystem, that's where a lot of the members organizations that are working on climate-related projects at the intersection, with kind of Web3, is trying to kind of categorize and track a lot of the activity. But honest, the space right now is growing very quickly. There's new projects every week, and I think probably in a few months, I think that would be really helpful to have even more of an ecosystem-wide kind of dashboard or view to see, okay, here's the amount of for example, natural assets tokenized on chain, or carbon offsets retired, or plastics, certificates, for kind of recycling kind of generated, or maybe that biodiversity credits that are being traded. So I think right now a lot of this is, I kind of know in sort of, like at different places where I can look and get that information, but the space is so new, and a lot of the protocols have just launched that there isn't like a very good aggregate view. But one thing I will say, we're seeing more and more big enterprises get very interested in this too, because they're used to, for example, as it comes to voluntary carbon credits, to work with kind of brokers in an OTC market, and it's not really a great experience for them, right? Because there's very little transparency. It's unclear, like, oftentimes what is sort of the true nature with these projects, what is like, how's price discovery working? And so in many ways, even in that kind of market, which is a small kind of subset of the broader market, blockchain can really provide a lot of value by bringing more transparency.
So that's like a challenge to all the devs listening out here. They can probably come up with a tool or a centralized app that helps us monitor what we've just talked about. So tied to that, why would you encourage all the blockchain devs to build on Celo blockchain? And what are some of the products that probably would love to see? We've talked about one right now, a dashboard that probably monitors ReFi activities. So, why would you encourage me as a dev to build on Celo blockchain?
Yeah, look, I mean, I may be biased, but I think we have the most awesome community out there, especially if you care about these topics or building applications that have real world impact. And, so often I see, founders, whether it's at an event or, in sort of the various Telegram groups, reach out to each other and offer support, even people that haven't met in real life, just, being part of the same ecosystem. And I think that's so powerful. As a founder, can be lonely, and being having sort of the support ecosystem is pretty magical. Beyond that, I mean, Celo, as you pointed out, like, is very low fees, is fast finality, right? 5-second kind of block times. And I think if you look at all the key components that people that are building, sort of an EVM environments need or maybe looking for, they're all there, right? So you have your kind of safe multi-sig infrastructure, which just recently announced that they kind of launched on Celo. You have the big kind of blockbuster sort of DeFi protocols like Uniswap and Curve. You have, Infura, a lot of the kind of infrastructure that you would, usually also kind of expect to have when you're building on Ethereum. But yeah, you have low fees. You are working in an environment where you also have, if you care about incorporating ReFi elements into your product, you have a lot of unique assets and protocols on Celo that you don't have in some of the other environments. And so, I think there are many reasons. I think there's also, given the, active bridging infrastructure between chains, I think we're no longer in a world where those decisions are, maybe as kind of, how would I put this, as irreversible, I think that's the word I'm looking for, as they used to be, right? Because you are able to have a launch a token on one chain and then bridge it to other chains to have people use it there, if depending on what you're building, right? So that's, or go multi-chain. So I think that's something that definitely has been changing. And I would say, the most important thing is to, I think, build alongside other people that you feel are mission aligned and share the same values. So with that, an open invitation for anyone who's curious to come to an event or reach out on Discord, or Twitter even, and just get in touch. We're a friendly bunch.
Yeah, I'm one of community members, and I can attest to that. Celo community is super friendly, and I think you've touched on that. Maybe one of the main reasons people should build on it is because of the community. Whenever you have a problem, you just get in touch in Discord, and someone will always assist you. So tied to that, could you touch on some of the probably partnerships, not necessarily on DeFi, but probably some of the success stories or partnership that Celo is working with or working together with in both the Web3 space and trying to solve the world problems?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably too many projects that I'm excited about to mention them all, but look, I think I'm always excited when people are working on projects that are solving a new use case or solving something that maybe wasn't even possible to do before. There's quite a few examples, especially as it comes to different global use cases. I'm going to give some examples that are maybe even a little bit more Africa specific. So in Kenya, for example, Nuzo has seen some tremendous growth. That's pretty exciting to see how they're really tied into sort of the local kind of commerce, economy and doing something really leveraging the power of Web3 to build kind of community and grow. I have been really excited by the engagement around Good Dollar with the recent launch on Celo and just seeing the excitement of that community. It's definitely something between Good Dollar and impact markets, having mechanisms to really reach populations that previously were kind of left out of the digital economy. And so I'm excited to see what people are going to build, leveraging those audiences, leveraging the fact that there are people now that are using their wallets on a daily basis and are starting to transact with their neighbors and friends. And I think we'll see a bunch of really interesting use cases and applications to be built around those kind of fundamental protocols. On the sort of more bigger kind of corporate side, Deutsche Telekom and T-Mobile have been tremendous partners for us. And Deutsche Telekom has been running validators on the Celo network, has been providing Oracle services, is also actively building on Celo. And I'll say hands down, the expertise they have in Web3 is phenomenal for corporate and also as an organization. They really get it, and that's been very encouraging. And I think they've become a role model for a lot of other telcos and big companies, and we know a lot of them. Kickstarter has been decentralizing on Celo, was announced last year, and has been working on that. I recently got a small demo of that, so that's exciting. But yeah, I'm having a hard time, at this point to keep track of everything that's been happening. But I am happy. It is really coming from everywhere in the world. It's not. I think the next killer app really at this point is hard to predict where it's going to be built by whom, because it's truly a global community.
Yeah, I would also have a hard time to keep up with all of them, because all of them seems to sound really amazing. They're really amazing. And just tied onto that, some of the things that happen in the ecosystem, that there are also things like fundings and opportunities. So could you briefly talk about how the projects or someone who is building on Celo can also find or enjoy these funding and opportunities just to kickstart their next amazing app, just like you've said, and some of the things that you look at before you consider it probably for funding, if you have an idea. Maybe you're on the tech side, I'm not sure.
My recommendation would be to start with a hackathon, where there's really almost always there's some hackathon kind of going with prizes, right? And it's a great opportunity to just dive in and connect with the team. Check our developer account on Twitter or just the main Celo account, even to stay up to date on what's going on, or sign up for our newsletter. And once an idea develops, there's a variety of avenues, but one that's been very popular, Celo Camp. And then from there's really an ecosystem of venture funds that have been actively investing, even in the bear market, in the Celo ecosystem. I think I just saw the data, second half of last year, projects in the Celo ecosystem raised over $100 million in venture funding. So really impressive numbers, and I think a testament to the quality of the founders coming to Celo.
That's amazing. I think it requires people to do most of the research and just get into the hackathons. I'm not sure if this story is true. I hear Kotani Pay also started off as a hackathon. They also built on Celo. You will probably tell me if that's true. So,
yeah, I remember Felix. When he first joined Celo Camp. Yeah, that's amazing example of a project. Yeah, an ecosystem.
So big up to Kotani. So I'm just curious about something. When I started talking to, or rather when I realized and came to interact with Celo, they were not. They rebranded. Could you please tell me something about rebranding? Because yeah, I'm really interested on what inspired the rebranding of the whole of the Celo ecosystem.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that was a big milestone. So Celo, for those who don't know, means purpose in Esperanto. And as we were last year, as we were thinking about kind of how far we had come as an ecosystem, we also wanted the brand to reflect that. And this is, as far as I know, the first time that a rebrand has happened, really with sort of a community, right? And so as part of the process, the marketing team at the foundation talked to many of the key stakeholders, founders in the ecosystem, got their input. And I think, the result is a brand that really reflects, many of the key voices that are shaping Celo and far beyond the initial kind of core team. And so, it was a very special moment when the new brand launched earlier this year.
The brands are also super amazing. Thumbs up to the person who did all the amazing work. I think they did a good job. So, another development that really amazed me is the launch of the Africa DAO, the Celo Africa DAO, and there was voting. This is the beauty of blockchain, because people vote, and after voting, if someone proposes something, you should be the one kind of educating me on this, but this is how it happens in blockchain, new listeners. So in the block space, someone comes up with an idea and voting takes place, and after that, the proposal is taken to the next stage. So could you talk about the voting of funding the Africa DAO for the projects, so that we hear or get to know more about it?
Totally, and I know we're a little over time, so I'll try to be quick. So this is really exciting. I think so. The foundation has an ecosystem team that's focused on supporting Africa and has representatives in a few different countries. But really, we realized that there's a lot more need and a lot more things we could be doing, and so this was kind of born out of that team, the idea of having sort of an independent Africa DAO that initially kind of raised funding from the Celo on-chain fund, which you can think of as a fund that's managed by all the holders that can vote on proposals and approve or not approve proposals that come in front of it. And so very, very excited to see that pass earlier this year and bring additional funding, to accelerate the growth across Africa through a variety of programs. And that's really the power with decentralized systems, and also permissionless open systems. Anyone can put a proposal forward, right? If you hold a little bit of Celo, you can put a proposal forward, and then anyone with Celo can vote on the proposal. And so that's That's something that we're seeing more and more as the ecosystem grows and matures. But yeah, I'm quite excited about that.
As an African, I'm pretty excited on it too. So just finally, as we wind up, there's so much to talk about. I'm hoping to host you probably another time we talk more about Celo. So could you probably talk about some of the future developments or plans that the Celo team has in store for not just the Celo community but the whole Web3 community? And then tied to that, I wish we talk briefly about the proof of stake to proof of mission.
Awesome. Yeah, and look, I'd love to come back. Yeah, we barely scratched the surface of everything happening.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think we're entering into of really acceleration of real world adoption. One and just to pick on one area that we didn't touch upon, but that is very timely today. The Credit Collective was kind of publicly announced on the Celo forum. And it's an amazing coalition of really the leading credit protocols, many of them on Celo, and also investors, capital providers, with sort of the idea to accelerate the growth of that segment, which to me is really one of the most important use cases in Web3, because when you can provide access to capital to people, to small organizations, right? You can really support them in their endeavors and their unique purpose, right? Going back to Celo values. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, check out Credit Collective, and definitely highly recommend for anyone interested in credit, in the credit space, to give that a look. But Francis, look, it was so great to be here on the show, and very happy to come back and shed some more about Celo and everything that's happening in the ecosystem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for showing up and telling us more about what's happening. It was amazing hosting you, and I think that's the end of the show. Probably you can just tell us where to, if you want to reach you, probably your social media handles as we end the show.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm Regen Rene on Twitter. So feel free to send me a message there.
Cool. I guess that's the end of the podcast, and we're looking forward to talk about Celo in the future. Yeah, so goodbye from me, and hope to see you later.
Thank you, Francis. Talk to you later.
All right. Rene, I've ended the recording.
Beautiful.